here's an overview I want you to pay attention to. So this is how Form 2848 actually appears. So basically, what you have to do on part 1 here, you have to put your taxpayer information. So you got to put your first name, last name, you got to put your address, and you have to put your taxpayer identification number. Here we're speaking about your social security number and your daytime telephone number. Please you can use your cell phone or your home number or your work number, whatever number is applicable in your case. Please put that, because the IRS does call and they will call you. So please, the number where you can be reachable at. So part 1 is pretty self-explanatory here. Part 2, where we talk about the representative. So you have to put the first name, last name of the representative, the address as well, the zip, the street, the zip, and the city, and so the CAF number is something you can find actually on your communication with the IRS. The PTIN, this is the professional tax identification number. The telephone number for the representative, not your phone number, but the representative. And so you have to actually check if this is a new address, telephone number, or fax number. So this is the second one. The third one, if you have other representatives, like in our case, we put like 4 representatives, but you actually can stick to 1. It's totally up to you, not a problem at all. So you do the same thing for every representative. If it's a new address, just put whatever. So it's pretty straightforward. Okay. So part 1 is done. Part 2 is done. I want to quickly talk to you about CAF, what really CAF stands for, because if you see on each line you have CAF number, CAF number, CAF number, CAF number. So CAF really is a centralized authorization files number. So the IRS has a specific set of rules around that. And I'm showing you on the screen here what CAF really stands for. And if you want to read more, you can go to the IRS website or let us know, and we'll certainly explain everything to you. And I want to show you next here. So basically here you have to specify the acts authorized. In other words, like the acts you want the IRS to actually validate. So we put income, payroll, and estate in our case here, and with the corresponding tax forms. And line 4, if this is applicable to you, you check it. Line 5, we actually checked that access my IRS records via an intermediate service provider and sign a return. So you have to tell the IRS the things you want to allow. And here I'm showing you a directory of federal tax return preparers with credentials and select qualifications in case you want to have more information. By the way, boss, I want to welcome you back to the show. It's really a pleasure to have you here. Make yourself comfortable. You are going to enjoy today's conversation. And so I'm continuing here. So line B, so you have to specify the specific acts not authorized. This is if you want to restrict the realm of acts that you do not want the IRS to authorize. In our case, this was not applicable, so we put the NA. And so retention and revocation of prior powers of attorney. If this is applicable to you, you have to see what really happens here. Just remember that you have to attach a copy of any POA, any power of attorney you want to remain in effect. And and line 7 is pretty self-explanatory. You have to sign. You have to put your name, first name, last name. You have to put your title, if applicable. And please make sure you sign. If you don't sign, the IRS will not process this form for you. Okay, so you want to sign, and you have to date also. And part 2 here, declaration of representative. This is where the representative has to also legally and officially declare certain things to the IRS. This is legal. And this has legal power, which means that anything you say here or anything the representative says here will have a force of law in court proceedings. And so just make sure that you go through everything here, you read it, and make sure that the representative has read it also. And where we sit in the column at the bottom here, the representative has to put some information about licensing, so the licensing jurisdiction, for example, and also in terms of, and it has to sign. So make sure that this is important. If you do not really fill out this form, this part of the form, the IRS will not process your Form 2848. And one thing I want to say here is that the state information is also important. Is also important because the IRS will actually cross-check the data you have here at the federal level. They will cross-check this with the state data. So it's really important, especially when it comes to licensing jurisdiction. Okay, and yeah, so make sure that the representative's license is still valid and updated. and in good standing for that matter. By the way, boss, I want to quickly remind you of today's topic. We are having a conversation about Form 2848. Let me give you the approach we need to really follow here when it comes to Form 2848. So the official name here of the form is the Power of Attorney and Declaration of Representative. So this is actually, when you think about it, it's an official document issued by the IRS and to grant authority to an appointed representative to actually act on behalf of a taxpayer in tax-related matters. And what happens here is that the person authorized to act on behalf of the taxpayer is referred to as the representative, and the taxpayer is known as the principal. So remember those two terms, representative and principal. So the form essentially establishes a legal relationship between the principal and the representative, allowing the representative to handle various tax-related tasks and communicate with the IRS on behalf of the principal. So when you really think about it, the representative acts as the spokesperson or spokesperson/attorney for the principal. So whether you are an individual taxpayer or a business owner, understanding actually the purpose, significance, and proper utilization of Form 2848 is really essential when you think about it, especially when it comes to effective tax management, okay? And so one thing I want to say here is that, in the importance of Form 2848 cannot be understated. You have delegation of authority, you have convenience and flexibility. That's an important element. You have expertise and knowledge. So basically, when we talk about delegation of authority, Form 2848 enables taxpayers to delegate their authority to a representative, allowing them to actually handle everything. You also have convenience and flexibility because you can authorize someone else, such as a tax professional, to handle your tax matters. And this can really save you time and effort, okay? And when we talk about expertise and knowledge, you can appoint representatives who actually possess specialized knowledge and expertise in tax law and regulations. That way you don't have to make a mistake, make a big boo-boo. You have representations in IRS interactions. If there's anything the IRS is reaching out to you, you have a third party actually handle everything for you. You have confidentiality and privacy. This is important because the representative appointed through a Form 2848 is actually required to adhere to strict confidentiality rules regarding the taxpayer's tax information. This ensures that sensitive financial and personal details remain confidential and are not disclosed without the taxpayer's consent. You have a streamlined communication because basically what happened here is that this form establishes a clear line of communication between the IRS and the authorized representative. You need that anyway. I mean, when you think about it, you do not have any chances of miscommunication or delays in resolving tax matters. You also have compliance with IRS requirements and representation across various tax periods. Now, let's talk a little bit about eligibility. This is an important point when it comes to Form 2848. And so who is really eligible to file this form? Now, the following individuals or entities are generally eligible to file Form 2848. So you have taxpayers, okay? Taxpayers, that's pretty straightforward. So any individual or entity that has, let's say, a tax-related matter before the IRS can file Form 2848 to authorize a representative to act on their behalf. Individuals, so this includes individuals who are filing their personal income tax returns, such as individuals filing Form 1040. So if you're listening to me right now, you may qualify to actually file Form 2848. Businesses can also file Form 2848. So business entities such as corporations, partnerships, LLCs, so limited liability companies, and trust can also file our 2848 to designate a representative to handle tax matters related to their business. And if you are a fiduciary, if you are working for a fiduciary, you can also file Form 2848. So when I talk about fiduciaries, so that really encompasses individuals serving as fiduciaries for estates, trusts, or other entities. Those can file also Form 2848 on behalf of those entities. And you also have tax professionals. I mean, here we have a large constellation of really a whole gamut of tax professionals. So here I'm speaking about attorneys. You have certified public accountants, CPAs. You have enrolled agents, You also have other tax professionals. Those also can file a Form 2848 if they have been authorized by the taxpayer to represent them before the IRS. The bottom line here is that you got to have proper representation, and you got to make sure that you are abiding by the rules of the law when actually interacting with the IRS. By the way, boss, I want to quickly remind you of today's topic. We are having a conversation about Form 2848. So how do you actually complete Form 2848? I mean, pretty straightforward. First of all, you have to obtain the form. So in case you're filing manually, you just go to the IRS website and actually download the form from the IRS website. And but if you're doing it electronically, then the form is already embedded in the software you're using. Just make sure though. And so you want to enter the taxpayer personal information. So we're speaking here about the name, address, social security number, and daytime telephone number. And if the form is been filed on behalf of a business, provide the EIN, the employer identification number instead of a social security number. And you have to designate the representative. So you have to put the name, phone number of the individuals you are authorizing as your representatives. You can designate more than one representative by attaching a separate sheet with their information I showed you earlier. So you can designate up to 4, and in some cases even more. And you have to specify tax matters. You have to really restrict the realm of, activities where you want the representative to actually represent you, so to speak. You have to have the signature and declaration. So remember this. Without this, the IRS will not process your request. So the taxpayer or authorized individual must sign and date a form in Part 4. If the taxpayer is a business, the form should be signed by an authorized individual, such as an officer or a partner. And we got to have in Step 6 the representative's declaration. So if you have designated a representative, they must also sign and date the form in Part 5, accepting the appointment and acknowledging the responsibilities that come with it. And Step 7 is pretty straightforward. This is where you have some kind of paperwork stuff. So we are speaking about attachments and mailing. So if you have, let's say, any additional information on it or attachments, such as power of attorney documents, include them here with the Form 2848. Just make a copy of the completed form and attachments for your records, and then mail the original to the appropriate IRS office. And the mailing address is provided in the form instructions. And note that it's important to read the instructions for Form 2848 thoroughly before completing the form to ensure you provide all necessary information, and also follow specific requirements or guidelines. And remember that Form 2848 authorizes someone else to represent you before the IRS, so choose your representatives carefully and only grant them the authority you are comfortable with. Let me give you a few special considerations when filing this form that you got to be aware of. And so first of all, you want to correctly identify the taxpayer and representative. That's important because if the IRS cannot actually locate or at least identify the taxpayer, your form or your request might be delayed. Okay, so we're speaking about the person receiving authority. So this includes data about their names, addresses, and taxpayer identification number. This can be their social security number or employer identification number. And you got to specify the tax matters. I mean, you cannot grant someone like a complete and vast authority about like on your financial life or your tax life without really sort of restricting the realm. So you can actually restrict it to, let's say, income tax, estate tax, gift tax, or other types of taxes. Okay. Be specific about the tax forms, years, and periods covered. You want to sign and date the form. This is also important. And also you have to specify whether or not you want to have a limited or general authority. So determine whether the authority granted to the representative is limited or general. So limited authority restricts the representative's power to certain tax matters, while general authority, as the name implies, actually grants broader powers. So you got to specify the limitations or provide clear instructions if limited authority is intended. You got to have designation of multiple representatives. You got to keep copies of the form. It's really important for your own records. And so the IRS may request a copy for verification purposes. You can also update or revoke the authorization. So if there are any changes to the representative's information, or if, let's say, you as a taxpayer, you wish to revoke the authorization, submit a new Form 2848 to the IRS. Make sure to clearly indicate that it is an update or a revocation. And also, you got to really have an authorization for specific tax years. And so you are able to appoint someone to act for all tax years, including future years. But you can also limit the representation to specific years or periods if desired. And you also have the ability to have a third-party designee. So you have the option to have a third-party designee who can actually discuss the Form 2848 with the IRS. The person may be contacted to clarify information on the form. It's important to note that the Form 2848 is a legal document, and errors or incomplete information could result in delays or complications, which you don't want anyway. Let me talk to you about certain modes of filing Form 2848, and you have the ability to do offline, online, or e-filing, depending upon how comfortable you are with either format. So when we talk about offline filing, just download the form, complete the form, sign the form, and submit the form. So just mail or fax the completed form to the appropriate IRS address or fax number provided in the instructions for that form. So when it comes to offline, pretty straightforward. When it comes to online filing, you got to visit the IRS online services. So go to the IRS websites and you have to navigate to the online services. Create an account. You have to access the e-services application and go through the process, electronically sign and submit the form. Pretty straightforward. What about e-filing? Well, when we talk about e-filing, we have a completely different sort of system here. So use authorize the e-file software. So if you are using authorized tax preparation software to file your tax return, some software options may include the ability to electronically file Form 2848 along with your return, and you just follow the software instructions. So this is kind of cool. Look for the option to file Form 2848 or grant power of attorney. And so they're pretty straightforward. So when we talk about, so the key takeaways here are like, when we talk about Form 2848, basically, this is a vital tool that empowers all kinds of individuals and businesses, for that matter, to effectively manage their tax obligations. Okay, so by designating a representative, you as a taxpayer, you can benefit from professional expertise, save time, and streamline your interactions with the IRS. So this is kind of important. And so, but one thing I want to say before closing to this conversation is that Form 2848 is a legal document. So because it's a legal document, everything that's on it must be accurate, must be double checked or triple checked for that matter. So it's a legal document that grants authority to a designated representative to act on behalf of an individual or business entity for tax-related matters with the IRS. So it's one of those things where you are granting a full authority to a third party, if you will, to actually do anything for you. And in terms of deadline, there's no deadline. You can file Form 2848 when you want it, when it's necessary. So and you can revoke it also when it is necessary. So you have complete authority and complete flexibility when it comes to filing here. Thank you so much for your attention. I really appreciate it. Let me just quickly recap to this conversation. So in this conversation, I spoke to you about Form 2848. So I gave you the overview and the approach, and finally, now the recap. Thank you so much. God bless you. I'll speak to you later on. One thing I want to say before closing is that basically the Form 2848, the eligibility period, the validity period can be forever or can be for a specific period. Just wanted to clarify that. Thank you so much. God bless you. I'll see you next time. Until then, remember, stay marvelous.